This is Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and peace and blessing be multiplied on all you brethren, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect, 144,000, and the rest of the men, women, and children that will receive mercy from the Lord in these last days. I'm the brother Damar Gabar, here with another lesson, Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh Yahweh Shai. All right, and this is going to be a quick lesson through the spirit, which, I'm sure brothers have came across this information. But as you can see, Trump was seen talking to the president of El Salvador, and he was whispering to him that, they need to build more prisons so that he could start deporting homeborn criminals. All right. And we know, allegedly on the 20th of this month, Trump is trying to sign into law the I always forget the name of this shit. Some type of legislation. I always forget the name. I just said this shit like a couple of days ago. The Insurrection Act. All right. And basically start locking up protesters and deporting people who are basically protesting and, being seditious, that are coming up against, this administration, coming up against this presidency. And eventually, the men of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and I saw brothers did a video on it, but I did a video on it a couple weeks back. We're over there in London. They're talking about locking up street preachers for 2 years in prison. You see, so as you can see, in a roundabout way, they're trying to make their rounds around getting to the men of the Lord, getting to this truth, to the true prophets, through our street ministry. And we know they're going to do it in a roundabout way. All they need is the right crisis and the right situation to where, in the event of a, catastrophic event or whatever, they can pass these executive orders. They can decree these unrighteous decrees to where, hey, they could, come up against the man of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. They can come up against the prophets of doom. They can come up against any of us who have done things that, when certain laws are put into place, they could get us for sedition. They can get us for terrorist act. They could, lump us in with the group of so-called homegrown criminals. And can be carted off and thrown into prison. Like I read in Revelations, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Because we know some of us are going to get caught up and get locked up in prison for this truth, for this ministry, for the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And we know that these devils have already built their case against the men of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and they can do it through many ways, Like I said, they can just pass an unrighteous decree, or they can use, AI and deep fakes and, have particular prophets or men out there preaching, do and say some of the most craziest shit and, put it on a AI deep fake, and then boom, bap, there you go. They could be justified in deeming us homegrown criminals and throwing us into prison, whether it's a prison here in the States or being deported to El Salvador. So let's read this. It says the United States hopes to start deporting criminals that hold U.S. passports to El Salvador, President Donald Trump has said. It says Trump told reporters as he welcomed El Salvador President Bukele to the White House on Monday that he would like to send violent homegrown criminals to be in prison under a deal with the Central America's country's government. The comments came amid ongoing controversy over the wrongful deportation of a migrant to El Salvador's notorious CSOT prison. Trump said he would only go through with the idea if his administration decided it was legal. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking. They are absolute monsters, Trump declared. I like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that. But remember, they could, these devils can pass any laws that they want to. They can pass certain executive orders if certain and particular things happen in this country, And like I said, they're never going to let any event or any situation go to waste. And these devils can stage something to where, they could bring in martial law. They could bring in, sign that insurrection act, and they can basically deem anybody that they want to be criminals or homegrown TRS, insurrectionists, treason, and they could eventually, deem the prophets and the men of the Lord for what we're out there on the highways and the byways doing as, offenses, and label us as criminals, even though we tell them all the time, hey, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We're just out there preaching and prophesying this word, but we know eventually that's going to become a crime, because what else are they going to lock us in prison for? The true men of the Lord. All right. We're not out here with weapons of mass destruction. We're not out here marching on Washington. We're not out here trying to take up arms and fight physically against this administration or this government. We're just literally out there teaching the Bible, which we know through the Spirit is a bigger threat than us trying to take up arms and physically fight against this devil, which he would love nothing more than for us to try to do that so he could, combat our carnality with his carnality, which he's far more superior. But like I said, what we're out there doing is a spiritual warfare. All right. We're not out there with guns and tanks and pistols. We're just out there with Bibles, and the sword of the Spirit, which is why we're constantly cussing out these other Israelite groups that are out there in carnal display. I was just watching a quick video of, I think the brother in Mississippi showing that ISUPK at their Passover, putting on TikTok, yeah, we're militant as hell, and they're real nigga universities. And we seen them at gun ranges, and doing all type of carnal shit, which could ultimately cause the ministry to be blamed, which could ultimately set the stage for these devils to be able to come down upon all of us, which is not wise. But, hey, we can just see all the angles and how, these devils could ultimately be justified in performing shit like this. But as we know, hey, it is prophetic that some of us will be cast into prison. But at the end of the day, if we're part of the elect, hey, it's going to be done in righteousness on our part. All right. So it says, what else is in here? It says White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt later confirmed that the proposal was on the table, saying Trump has simply floated the idea. Well, he's floating it because this is ultimately an idea that he would like to do. And hey, it might be very well as he's in the seat of the president where this is going to happen, where he's going to do things like this, because scriptures tell you that there's going to be sedition. There's going to be an uprising. There's going to be a violent revolution in this country at some point, man. Whether that's, we'll see how this tariff situation play out. We just saw a mass protest all across Babylon last weekend or 2 weeks ago, about all over the country because people are not happy with the way the Trump administration is handling business, So, hey, we'll just see how things are going to play out. But we know, as they tell us in Second Esdras, that that this insurrection and this sedition is going to happen. All hell is going to break loose in this society, and they're going to have to bring in martial law. The cities are going to be blocked off, and all hell will break loose in this society, man. It says University of Notre Dame professor Aaron Corrigan, an immigration law expert, said there's no provision of the U.S. law that would allow the government to kick citizens out of the country. Well, hey, guess what? The Constitution can be easily overrid or ultimately done away with in particular situations, But Trump said the U.S. build more prison. The U.S. leader made the remarks as the controversy over the deportation of Kilmar Garcia, a Salvadorian who was living in Maryland with his family, was granted protection from deportation, blah, blah, blah. The U.S. Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return. However, the administration has said Garcia's fate is up to El Salvador and has sought to maintain that he is a member of the MS-13 criminal gang, despite of lack of evidence or any convictions. On Monday, Bukele told Trump that he would neither return Abrego Garcia nor release him in El Salvador. Trump said he was not interested in asking for Abrego Garcia to be released. Trump, it says homegrown criminals are next, the U.S. president said to Bukele. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You've got to build about 5 more places, man. See, so he's doing more than just floating that idea. He wants this type of situation to happen. And this is what Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. It says, woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. You see? So like I said, this is definitely inside the spirit of Esau Edom to do. And we know situations are going to arise in this society to where, hey, an unrighteous decree of this magnitude can be passed, and it will be put into law. And also, Trump was talking about bringing back firing squads, bringing back the death penalty, And remember, this is ancient Rome, man, all over again. And that is nothing new under the sun. You see? But a lot of people think that you're protected by this constitution and you have particular rights. Hey, when martial law is enacted and these particular, executive orders are in play, the constitution doesn't exist anymore. All right. These devils going to be able to do whatever the hell they want to do. And we know it's part of the elites and a part of their plan to bring in this new world order, where the slogan was to expect no mercy. So you, Jake, better wake the hell up, man. You better get in the right spirit, and you better, get yourself right with Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. This is Isaiah 19:4, and it says, "In the Egyptians," which Trump is the modern day Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the spiritual Egypt, America. "And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai of hosts." All right. And we're in the hands of that cruel Lord, Donald J. Trump. And this is why he's saying the shit that he's saying. And he's floating around these ideas of getting rid of you homegrown terrorists, and pretty much anybody that, doesn't see eye to eye, or anybody that's calling out or complaining or coming up against, his agenda. You see, he's already putting heavily into play all this anti-Sim bullshit, to defend those small hats, and putting laws into place to where, hey, you can be deported and locked up if you come up against them. So how much more when it really hits the fan here in this society? You don't think this devil has it in his spirit and in his heart to be that cruel Lord, as the scriptures say that he is? See, Jake better wake the hell up, man. Hey, and this it's getting to be crunch time, man. We can't put it past this devil that he won't use his position and his power to do things like this and to become that cruel Lord, man. So with that, I'm gonna close it there. Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm gonna give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, you are edified. Shalom.